Research Team 32.
What have you got for us today then, Keith?
Hold that horse. Monday, 9 a.m, briefing meeting with Department Research Team 32, chaired by myself, Keith Bilk, Under-Secretary to the Department Committee. Team Leader Oscar Proud is now taking receipt of this week's brief.
Thank you, Keith.
Now, the committee wants one of your research brainstorms on crime and punishment. Basically, they want more of one and less of the other. Which way round is up to you. And I think I'll have that on my desk by 6. I should also have finished your appraisals by then.
What?
It's the annual Department Appraisals Day today, Victor.
Someone had to tell me that before I came to work. That affects the whole way I behave. Did you know about this, Laszlo?
I only wear a tie once a year, Victor. How many more warning signs do you want? And I should alert you to the fact that the department are looking to cut costs, particularly in expensive areas, such as your areas.
Well, I'm sure you'll be unimpeachably fair, as always, Keith.
Laszlo Wolf ingratiating on a strictly once-a-year basis, minus 5 points. Briefing meeting terminated.
The department. Far from the gaze of an unsuspecting public and untouched by the tentacles of Westminster, the department has been secretly running the country since longer than you have the capacity to imagine. Deep within its labyrinthine headquarters works a dedicated three-man think tank. Oscar Proud, historian, steeple admirer and art bandit. Victor Gooch, legal showboater, grudge bearer and bear grudger. And Laszlo Wolf, under-sultan of science and the real inventor of the Fosbury flop. Each week, they are required to investigate possible solutions to one of the nation's major problems. Each week, your future is in their hands.
If we don't nail this crime brief right in the eye, Keith is going to appraise us into the middle of next week.
Sector 4G, Historical Disinterpretation Division.
Now, Britain is in the grip of a crime wave.
Not again.
No, not again. In fact, it's the self-same crime wave that began when the first Viking landed on our shores and said, I like the look of her, and I like the look of that.
You know, Home Office stats over the last few years have shown that the overall level of crime is falling, but the level of violent crime is going up, which is actually great news, because it means we now have fewer criminals, but the ones that are left are getting much better at it.
So the whole system works far more efficiently for us, the consumers of crime.
Sector 51, Guesswork.
Yes, well, I think that proves just how much research we need to do before we can slash the tyres on this cycle of crime and send it careering into a ditch. So I'll see you two in the office in half an hour.
Attention department employees. The pharmaceutical section of the Global Resentment Fostering Division are delighted to announce the development of a cure for AIDS, with which to tease Africa. This marks the completion of Phase 1 of their new Insult to Injury program.
I was not offside.
You were. You had 3 men miles offside.
It was table football.
I pushed my defenders up. Look along the line.
Where's the flag?
Victor, you were offside. Laszlo, you're going to have to pay to have that table fixed. Now focus. Crime. It's the political golden goose. One squeeze and it'll shit out enough votes to carry you through an election.
Stupid goose.
There's a lot of misunderstanding about the legal system. Virtually everyone still thinks that life means life, which is why they all get so stroppy when life has come out of jail not dead.
Life does mean and has always meant life. What people have forgotten is that the Magna Carta clearly stipulated the lifespan in question was that of a dog.
Yes, well, that's not the worst of it. The biggest source of confusion at the moment is about exactly how much reasonable force you're entitled to rain down on a burglar in your own home.
Well, it's always been notoriously difficult to persuade people to concentrate on the word reasonable rather than the word force.
All right, then, well, let's give the public proper guidance to make sure that they know exactly what they can do if and when they find themselves pinning an intruder to the floor.
Ow! Get off me! I can't breathe! Keep still, you little thief! Oh.
Welcome to the Home Office Reasonable Force Helpline. All of our operators are busy at the moment and you've been placed in a queue.
Are you on hold?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, unbelievable.
Well, tell me about it.
Home Office, Lucy speaking. How can I help you?
Well, a guy's broken into my house and I'm sitting on his chest. I just really wanted to know what I'm allowed to do to him next.
Is the gentleman armed, sir?
Oh, hold on, I don't know. Are you armed?
I've got this crowbar, but it's really just for jimmying the window open.
Oh, he's got a crowbar.
Well, that is a Category C offensive weapon.
Oh, really?
That entitles you to a maximum of 5 blows,
Great.
distributed evenly about the permitted body area.
Oh.
Nothing to the head, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Do you want to borrow my crowbar?
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Ah! Ah! Oh! Ah!
Oh, you missed with one of those.
Sorry. Oh!
The intruder learnt his lesson.
Well, ask him. Are you going to do this again? I think he's done the trick.
Good. Does the gentleman have his own getaway vehicle?
Have you got a car?
No, I was going to steal yours, actually.
Oh, yeah, of course you were. Oh, well, don't worry, I'll give you a lift.
Cheers.
Victim support will be in touch with you both in a couple of days.
Fine.
Well, I think that proves conclusively that there's never been a better time to be burgled than now.
Yeah, it would certainly have helped me out the other day when my house was broken into. I was about to smash my burglar all over the place, as I might have every right to do, when he pointed out to me that he had in fact stolen my entire house, and I was now intruding in what had become his property.
And the newspapers have been pouring their vinegar into this gaping social wound. One tabloid recently informed its readers that you're allowed to kill buglers. That little typo cost the lives of 17 of our finest valveless brass enthusiasts. It was a bloodbath.
Didn't the paper spot the typo?
Of course they did. They just didn't care.
And to be fair to them, mob justice is basically the natural extension of democracy.
Well, it's more than that. It's a genuine option. If there are more than 40 people with torches standing in your front garden, then you should be guilty of whatever it is they've misspelt on their placards.
Need I remind you, gentlemen, of the countless miscarriages of mob justice?
Yeah, name one.
The Portsmouth paediatrician.
Name another one.
Jesus.
Oh, he was guilty.
He was clearly guilty.
He wasn't.
According to the
If
letter
he'd
of the law at
pleaded,
the
he'd
time.
have got off with a fine.
No.
Guilty.
We are not having this discussion again. Jesus would have walked free instead of Barabbas if it hadn't been for the gay vote.
What church do you belong to, Oscar?
I just question the ability of any mob to mete out justice when they're too busy shouting, "Lock 'em up and throw away the key."
Well, that's just a metaphor.
No, it isn't. They actually want keys thrown.
Well, let them have it. If you give an angry crowd an ostentatious, pomp-laden ceremony involving one of the nation's major criminals having his key thrown away, they won't even care what key it is you're actually throwing.
You join us here at Pontefract Prison, where huge crowds have gathered today to watch the jailing and throwing away of the key of Big Jim Dowdswell, the Leicester slasher. Down among the happy throng who've cheered on the convoy escorting the former mechanic and killer of three is our Midlands reporter, Vicky Pugh.
Yes, Hugh, and the prison van is coming right past me now, making its stately way into the prison yard. You monster! Rotten hell! The slasher is being taken out of the van now. Die, monster! Die!
And any moment now, the crowd should be seeing live pictures on the big screen of the 6'4" knife man being led into his cell. Let's wait for the slam. And he's in. And surely now the slasher's reign of terror is at an end. Vicky, how have the crowds reacted to that?
Hugh, this is a very popular conviction with the crowd.
Over now to Julian Tutt on the prison balcony.
Thank you. And the Chief Warden is standing just in front of me on the balcony from where he'll throw away the ceremonial key. His hand goes up. His left hand. He's the first left-handed warden here since the great Bob Charles back in 1963.
Quiet, please.
He'll be trying to throw the key into the specially dug pond. There's a left and right wind, but it shouldn't be a problem for him. He's thrown it. It's arcing majestically through the air.
Get in the pond!
Oh, shot! Yes, it's gone straight in, Hugh. Not a hint of nerves.
Well, Julian, the crowd will be going home happy tonight as the man who terrorised Leicester for 2 panic-fuelled weeks last August is led off towards the exercise yard to begin his recommended 20-year minimum sentence.
Laszlo, you've instantly morphed a vengeful horde into a flag-waving family day. Well done.
Thank you.
You can have one of your things back from my confiscation drawer.
Ooh.
Well, what do you want?
Oh, I'll take my insulin, please.
Good choice.
There you go, and I hope you've learned your lesson, young man. Now, the brief wants us to look at who is to blame for the rise in crime. So, who are your fingers pointing at?
Society.
That is too broad.
The film Child's Play.
That is too narrow.
Rap music. There is no more convenient scapegoat. Rap music sells guns to children and teaches them how to fire them. That is a fact.
Victor, blaming hip-hop for gun crime is like blaming JMW Turner for stormy seas.
Rubbish. The last time I listened to some rap, I shot 12 in a shopping centre before turning the gun on myself.
No, you didn't.
Good point.
I blame the press. Our newspapers have lit the fires of hysteria and then psychotically fan those flames by constantly and deliberately misinforming the public.
Yeah, the media can seriously jeopardise your already hypothetical chances of a fair trial. Look at one of today's headlines. Murderer pleads not guilty.
And they glamorise criminals. Yes, the Krays love their mother, but I, for one, have managed to juggle loving my mother with not killing anyone. It's really only keeping two balls in the air.
Mind you, if the press are so quick and decisive in making judgments, they could be just the plunger that our bunged-up legal system needs.
What do you think my chances are today, Counsel?
Well, Mr. Wilkes, you're up in front of the Sun, so be very careful what you say.
Oh, no.
This is the Sun versus Michael Wilkes, child killer. All rise for a circulation of 3.4 million.
Yes, thank you. Right, please be seated. Now, Defence Counsel, was the victim at all pretty?
Not especially, Your Honour.
OK, was the murder interestingly gruesome?
I'm afraid not, Your Honour.
I see. Final question. Is there any evidence of the defendant looking a bit evil in a photograph?
None, Your Honour.
Oh, I can't get an angle on this. Let's run with something on that bird out of Corrie. Case dismissed.
That is not eccentric!
Shame on you!
Come on, that's ridiculous. I'm clearly guilty. Next case, the Sun versus Paul Roos, Managing Director of Rooster International.
What the hell's this about?
£80 million fraud.
Prosecution, this had better be good. My readers really don't give a toss about this kind of crap.
Your Honour, perhaps they would if you pointed out to them that Rooster International's £80 million fraud is the financial and moral equivalent of mugging at £15 per biddy 5.3 million old women.
I can see it now. Man mugs everyone's granny. Great. They're going to be queuing up to bang his van. Guilty!
Oscar, our newspapers can't be trusted with basic punctuation, let alone the entire criminal justice system.
Personally, I blame the parents. You cannot deny that 100% of crime is committed by people's children.
Ah, statistics. The hospice of the argumentally infirm.
You cannot fight a fact.
Blame is a social boomerang. Throw it by all means, but be prepared to duck when it comes flying back at you. If we're really going to prevent crime, we need first to isolate what causes it. Any offers, Laszlo?
Poverty.
Victor?
Drugs.
Laszlo?
Alcohol.
Bit like drugs, Victor?
Gays.
We've run dry. The first two we could. But as always, when you try to address the real root causes of crime, people veer off the subject and grab for the nearest available minority. It's not traditionally the case, but hey-ho, makes a nice change.
Oscar, leave crime prevention to me and my friend technology. Have a look at this little beauty. I've had the girls down in Prototypes develop this helmet which senses criminal thoughts. Any cranial impulse that goes beyond naughty triggers an electrical charge to debilitate the potential offender, and an alarm which alerts passers-by to the crime being pondered. Victor.
What?
Put this on. Alright.
Ah!
I am about to steal your biscuit.
See? So I simply eat the biscuit. And start dancing triumphantly in front of him.
Yeah!
I am about to commit a violent assault.
Take the helmet off him.
Why? If everyone in the country had to wear one of these babies, there would be zero crime. Zero crime.
Yes, yes.
Zero crime.
Yes, accepted, Laszlo. But aren't people going to say that it's an infringement of their civil liberties, you know, being forced to walk around with an enormous helmet on their head?
Well, if they're not going to do anything wrong, they've got nothing to worry about.
No, this is brilliant. And the technology exists for all of this.
No way. Not even close. Victor's a man of limited imagination. I just guessed his thoughts, made a tape, and then electrocuted him. But it's still a good idea in principle.
I'm gonna break your leg! Ah!
Right, it's lunch, which you should probably buy for Victor.
I'm happy to do that. It's 2 for 1 at the medieval hog roast stand. 1 for the road.
Attention department employees. The Social Engineering Division are delighted to announce the negotiation of a ceasefire in the class war. This will run from the end of the January sales until the beginning of the grouse shooting season.
I'm telling you, Keith's appraisal is coming down with snow on it. If we don't sort this out, one of us is going to get fired.
Let them do it. Team 32 is big enough to absorb the blow.
No, it isn't, Victor. There are only 3 of us, one of whom is going out dancing with Mr. Sack tonight.
Oscar, we have a staff of 12. I hacked into the personnel system years ago and set up 9 ghost employees for us. Why do you think we're paid so much?
And how do you think we all won the Victoria Cross?
That just seemed rude to ask. Anyway, Keith's still going to make anyone with a sub-acceptable appraisal do one of his team-building exercises.
Not a problem again. We'll just hack into his system and give ourselves a blanket 7 out of 10.
That should slip nicely under the radar.
And whilst we're there, it would be silly not to have a bit of a tinker with Keith's own appraisal.
Tinker me what? Team 32? Right. Who's interested in going in with me on the hog roast 2 for 1?
Sorry, Keith, I'm having 2.
Victor?
I'm having 2.
Laszlo?
I'm having 4. Yes, I'm a bad Jew.
Oh well, I'll have the salad then. Which I will munch on whilst filling in your appraisals. Guess which one of you I'm going to describe like this. Surly, uncooperative, and often downright rude, Victor Gooch is an increasing liability to the entire department. Any guesses? Victor Gooch?
Is it your mama?
No, it wasn't her. Strange guess. Have you lot fixed crime for me yet?
Oh, we're going to take our hogs down on hanger, Keith. I've been running some experiments down there on rehabilitating criminals. You can come and appraise them if you've got the balls.
And will those experiments still work if you haven't got a hog roast to hand? I thought so. Off you trundle.
8 hog roasts, please, Guinevere.
I'll go easy on the plague sauce, Gwyn.
Salad for me, please, Elaine.
Attention department employees. If any division within the department has lost an employee called Brian, could they please collect him from the staff pound?
Helmets on. You never know.
Now, I've been doing some amazing things down here, lads. I'll show you Lab 14 first. Now, prison breeds crime like Catholic rabbits, but if more than 50% of the prison population are innocent, law-abiding citizens, then by sheer force of numbers, they will exert the peer pressure on the lifelong criminals. So in here, we've got a 2-time murderer in a cell with Julian de Coverley, the former deputy chairman of the RSPB.
Let me get this right, Julian. You're claiming that bludgeoning someone to death is not the best way to resolve my dispute with them.
Yes, exactly, Ron. I would say that you're far better off walking slowly up to them, holding out your hand, and offering them some seed. Soon enough, they'll be pecking away, and you'll both be happy.
Oh, yeah, I do see that now, yeah.
Now, Ron, could you possibly tell me more about how you stop a man breathing with your bare hands? It sounds marvellous fun.
It's not an unmitigated success yet. Anyway, here in the Chris Akabusi Memorial Lab, we're trying to make criminals understand the consequences of their actions. Now, this burglar has been kept in a cell for the past 2 years with the little girl whose Christmas presents he so callously stole.
Shut up! Please! Shut up! You've made your point! I had no idea this meant so much to you, but please! Shut up!
Give them a couple of weeks and they should both be fixed.
Good. Make a mental note of all this.
What do you mean, Oscar? It's here. I've made a physical note of it.
Yep, well, that will do too.
Let's get back to the office. Those appraisals aren't going to hack into themselves. Right, I'm into the mainframe.
Great. Pass me the keyboard.
Don't worry, Oscar. I'll do it. What do you want me to say about you?
Oscar Proud is a model leader whose selfless devotion to his duties is reminiscent of a modern-day Jesus in his pomp.
It's in. Laszlo?
Laszlo J. Wolfe's ability with a filing cabinet inspires dread in all his foes.
Very nice. Now me. How is it that you spell indispensable? I remember. V-I-C-T-O-R. Great. That's us sorted out. Now for the fun stuff. What shall I put in Keith's appraisal?
Go with this. Keith Bilk is a motivational Kalahari.
Right.
Whose powers of leadership register 0.1 on the Caesar scale.
I once dreamt that he was dead. Then I woke up. And I was disappointed.
Ouch.
It happened. I've typed it. It's been committed to history.
Right, back to work. Now, next in the brief we have prisons. Our prisons are at bursting point. In fact, this morning, HMP Ashwell actually burst. They've been finding bits of prison 20 miles away. The sex offenders wing came down on the A421.
We're already having to put convicted criminals on a waiting list. Some of Britain's most lethal gentlemen are having to wait up to 18 months before they can begin their sentences. And in those 18 months, bad things happen.
And prisons are the most expensive means of punishing people. Victor, you're our wardrobe into the magical world of finance.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to jail someone these days?
It costs the state £40,000 per slammy per year. But for you, Oscar, I can pull a few strings and do it for 10k. Mates rates. Who's it you want clinked up?
We'll talk about that later, but that is competitive.
Just give me a name.
Well, it's not the state who should be paying for the imprisonment of our criminals. I'll tell you who should be. The victims. Why should I pay my taxes so that Freddy Krueger can be held in jail when he didn't actually kill any of my family? It just seems totally unreasonable that the bill should land on my doormat.
Freddy Krueger's not being held in jail.
I am staying in this evening.
Well, your point stands. If victims had to make a tough financial decision before condemning their criminal to an expensive jail term, Britain might well become a far more forgiving society.
I have a short statement from my client, Mrs. Statham. Myself and my family are delighted with the guilty verdicts, and we are now anxious to move on with the rest of our lives. Whilst we are prepared to remortgage the burnt-out remnants of our house to purchase the 6-month incarceration of Hopkins for perverting the course of justice, we feel that Broome at a potential cost to us of £1.2 million over 30 years, deserves a second chance. Thank you. That is all.
Mrs. Statham!
Well, that would certainly reduce the number of people in our prisons.
Yeah. Prisons are overcrowded, the planet is certainly overcrowded, so there's only one way to go, and that's up, at enormous speed. I'm suggesting blasting prisons into space and programming them so that at the end of their sentence they hurtle back to Earth and crash down, ideally in the sea.
Rocket prisons are proven failures, Victor. They've tried it before, and all of a sudden, escaped serial killer Neil Armstrong is an international hero. It makes me sick.
Well, perhaps it's time to make prisoners invest in their own punishment. They can take out an inmate's loan, which they'll only have to start paying back when they are legitimately earning over £16,000 a year.
Yeah, well, it's working a birthday treat with universities. There is no more effective means of social control than financial deterrent.
True. It's always been a basic right to have free prison sentences, but people have to accept that basic rights must be financially viable these days.
Well, we can reduce the burden on the prison system by making open prisons more like the Open University. You can serve your punishment all in the comfort of your own home.
Now on BBC Two, it's time to join our friends at the Open Prison for the Punishment Zone. Later on tonight at 2 o'clock, it's another trip to the exercise yard.
Oh, I'll have to move the sofa.
And then at 3:30, it's an hour with the prison chaplain.
Oh, not again.
But first, it's making mailbags with Warden Hutchings.
Oh, I better get my kit.
Good morning, you horrible lot. If you remember last week, you scum, we got as far as cutting out the material for the mailbag. This week, we're going to learn how to sew it together, you utter vermin.
Oh, please, no. No. Becky! Have you recorded EastEnders over Daddy's special tape?
Leave me alone! You don't understand me!
I'm never going to finish my bag at this rate. How am I supposed to pay my debt to society if people in this family keep using my special tapes? Watch the bloody omnibus, girl! Are you listening to me, Becky?
You're a terrible role model!
Oh, don't say that, darling. I'm trying to learn from my mistake. Who's moved Daddy's special bucket?
Excellent. That is exactly what we need more of. Sentences for convicted criminals that don't involve locking them up at enormous expense to the taxpayer.
Well, the death penalty is knocking at your door, Oscar. What are you going to do? Turn off your light and pretend you're not in?
The British public have never really forgiven themselves for letting the death penalty slip through their fingers.
Well, that's more a problem with the education system than the criminal justice system.
If you want a cheap and extremely effective alternative to prison, look no further than the humble forfeit. The greater the crime, the greater the humiliation.
Oh, I like that. If you're caught shoplifting, wear a tutu for a month. You can't look tough in a tutu.
Testify.
Or if you're caught committing manslaughter, kiss your neighbour. Hi there, Neil.
Hiya.
Hey, how are things?
Fine, thanks, yeah. Fine, thanks, Mike.
Hey, look, we should all play basketball again soon.
Let's all do that.
Yeah. Is there anything I can help you with, Neil? Oi! Neil, what the hell was that?
I'm sorry, Mike. I will never break the law again.
Neil, kiss him again, and this time, as the court instructed, with your tongue.
I think you'd be surprised just how effective that could be.
Well, you've clearly never lived next door to Fabio.
But we're aiming too low. We can go further than just making criminals functioning members of society again. If we focus their rehabilitation properly, we can make them heroes. We've been working on this. Now, criminals have skills. It's just what they use those skills for that we don't really like. So I've asked the dweebs from our social rehab squad to redirect those skills to positive effect. Victor, lights.
Got 'em.
Watch this.
This is Basil. He is a murderer. His skill is killing things. But he's been retrained to kill animals instead of people. We sent him to work in an abattoir.
Look at me now. Chopping up my victims into manageable steaks. Who's for a 12-ounce T-bone?
There's good in everyone.
And that was 6 months ago. This is Basil last Thursday.
For the latest stage of our attempted redirecting of Basil's instinct to kill, he is flying this insecticide-spraying aeroplane over the malaria-ridden swamps of Southeast Asia.
Those mosquitoes are going to get it.
big time.
Next week, we're going to get Basil to kill the malaria virus itself. Then he's going to brutally slaughter all known diseases. And if everything goes to plan, within 3 years, he'll be standing in front of the Nobel Committee with a medal round his neck, clearing his throat to thank what's left of his mother.
That's fantastic. But before we bag and tag this still warm corpse of an issue, I have a final point. Is crime not the bedrock of our society?
No, it isn't.
Wrong and wrong, respectively. Without crime, our entire economy would collapse. There'd be no jobs for lawyers, policemen, prison workers or probation officers.
Oh, yeah, you are right.
And it doesn't stop there. There'd be massive job cuts for locksmiths, insurance companies, the motor industry, publicans, social workers, undertakers, hearse painters and black paint makers.
Yeah, you are right, actually. What about the cheese wire sellers, kosh manufacturers, petrol companies, the fire service, the church, gaffer tape mongers and the country's few remaining swordsmiths?
Yeah. They're all going to suffer, not to mention the makers and distributors of snooker balls and socks.
That's right. And what about the florists?
And let's not forget the Indonesian kids that make most of Britain's swag bags these days.
Let's face it, we need crime as much as crime needs us.
I'd miss it if it wasn't there.
We all would.
OK, Laszlo, stick the disc up the chute. Oh, that'll be Keith.
I've let myself in. Well, Team 32, I have your appraisals. It's bad news, good news and bad news. First bad news, we're going to have to downsize your team from 12 employees to 3.
Don't worry, guys. They can be rehired with a click of a button.
The good news, Victor, the department committee are delighted with your report. Well done.
Thank you very much, Keith.
Yeah, I was a bit, well done. And bad news part 2, Laszlo and Oscar, the committee are very disappointed, and your continued employment rests on satisfactory completion of my team-building challenge.
Victor, what have you done?
How was your appraisal, Keith?
I did fine.
Oh.
I'm not an idiot, Victor. I am ring-fenced. So, Oscar, Laszlo, please accompany me to the team-building barn, where you will be battling my team-building robot. Look out for me. I'll be the one in the cockpit.
Oh, I'm coming to watch this.
Coming at you.
Come on, lads! You can beat this massive metallic behemoth! Ow! Oscar, can you stop cowering behind me?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Laszlo. I'm a proper chicken. I'm a mental haemophiliac.
Are you working as a team yet? Slam!
Victor, this little prank of yours has just become a lifelong grudge. I know I should be feeling guilty, but I'd do the same thing again.
Toasty.
Right, that's it. This robot's going down. The gloves are off. Oscar, at least lend me a shoe.
Bring it on!
The Department was written and performed by Chris Addison, John Oliver and Andy Zaltzman, with Peter Dickson, Matthew Holness and Lucy Montgomery. Hugh Edwards and Julian Tutt gave their time so that others may laugh. Produced by Richard Grocock and John Naismith. The Department is an Avalon production for BBC Radio 4. Now put your hands in the air and walk away from your radio.